This is the Freedom Otter Show. well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Broadcasting from the Ottoman Empire with 50,000 gigawatts of power, this is the Freedom Otter Show.
Friday. Yeah, Friday. How's everybody doing? It's the Freedom Otter Show. I am your lovable water sausage, Freedom. Please, no petting till after the show is done. Thank you. But don't be afraid to throw some rants or money at me. I'm all good with that. That's fine. Hope you're having a great night. It's Friday. We've got some cool stuff we got to cover. We got Necromav in the channel with us tonight. He is the co-host. He's becoming the irregular co-host. Irregular. Hopefully he wears regular size t-shirts. Still. Hey, while you're here, why don't you do me a favor? Head on over to our merch store. Check out OttomanEmpire.creator-spring.com. Check out what we got going on over there. We got t-shirts, we got hoodies, we got sweatshirts, we got water bottles, we got coffee mugs, stickers, all that good kind of stuff. Go check it out. Help support not only this channel, but the gaming channel. It helps us put subscriptions on websites that we can use for more content, as well as hardware to build up the studio. It all goes to a really good cause, building this two-way community. And while you're at it, go ahead, check out the show notes, like, share, and follow. In the show notes, we got a Discord. You can join our two-way community. So go ahead, check it out. Hope everybody's having a great time tonight. I know I'm having a great time. How's it going, Freedom Otter here? Thanks for being on the show. I'm going to bring in our guest host, co-host, I should say, bringing in Joe here. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
Hey, doing well. Hope everybody's doing well out there on whatever platform they're watching on. Now that you've expanded to YouTube, you got to add that in there, you know. What up, Rumble? What up, X?
Rumble, YouTube, X. We're all here. It's one big happy social media family. There you go, and you can all check it out. Oh, I got squeaky mic arm here, so we'll have to check that out. But anyway, thanks everybody for being on the show. Really do appreciate it. Thanks, Joe, for being a co-host again on the show. Of course, always thankful for that. So how'd your week go? How did everything go with you?
The week's been crazy, but I would like to thank you for having me on again. It's hard for me to, follow up Costas from last week. So that's a hard act to follow, man, but I appreciate your confidence, and the invitation.
Oh yeah, no problem, man. No problem. I want to get more people, and I want to have you on with another guest, get like a little roundtable thing going as well. It's all part of the plan, man. We're just growing it. That's all we're doing.
Hey, here to do everything I can for the 2A community.
There you go, man. There you go.
What I've always been about. That's what I'm about. I walk it like I talk it, and I love the fact that people like yourself are putting together these podcasts where people can actually discuss the real issues and get to the root causes of shit. So,
oh yeah, definitely. And and like I said, we're gonna cover a lot of good stuff tonight. We got some good stories. And first thing I want to bring up is the Minnesota House members. Some Minnesota House members deliver scorching rebuke over gun storage bill. And I actually got into a little bit of a back and forth today on Twitter. It wasn't the usual kind of name calling and all that kind of stuff with the person that I was on. But if you go to my timeline, you can see it. It happened around 2-3 o'clock today, Eastern time. And it was, while we obviously didn't agree on everything, but it was spirited and it was relatively civil, which I think is a lot of things that are missing, especially with the gun grabbies and the commie mommies. They don't like being nice, Joe. They don't like us, I think.
They don't, because their end goal is to have everybody disarmed. So they run on this emotional argument that, oh, well, it's for the kids. This is for the kids. Well, then why are you trying to, take away what protects our kids the most efficient way possible?
Yes.
So, they try to use those emotional heartstrings to do that.
Yep.
When if you actually look at the subject, look at their argument, it just doesn't hold water.
It doesn't. It does not. And after hours of debate, the Minnesota House adopted a gun storage mandate last night that will require gun owners to keep their firearms unloaded and locked up unless they're under the direct physical control of an authorized user. Despite the 68-64 vote in the House, the measure faces an uncertain future in the Senate, where Democrats have a one-seat majority and several DFL senators have been non-committal about their support for the bill. Before the final vote took place, though, State Rep Walter Hudson delivered a scathing rebuke to supporters of the bill, wondering why the chamber had wasted so much time on a measure that is likely to get to the governor, that isn't likely to get to the governor. I can read, honestly. These are my reading glasses, especially when Minnesota already has a law on the books dealing with negligent storage of firearms. It turns out we don't need it. It's completely unnecessary on your own terms, Hudson chided his colleagues. We've heard varied explanations about why this bill is needed. That seems all over the map, but at root, I'd say the basis of the presentation is that we want to protect kids from accessing firearms, he continued, before pointing out the existing statute dealing with negligent storage of firearms. He says, seems relevant, especially considering the presentation of this bill tonight, and much of the debate around this bill tonight has been suggesting that it's the wild, wild west in Minnesota, and we don't care about it. Subsection 2 of the chapter, a person is guilty of a gross misdemeanor who negligently leaves or stores a loaded firearm in a location where the person knows or reasonably should have known that a child is likely to gain access unless reasonable action is taken to secure the firearm against access by the child. All right, I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to say that I am totally against bills that mandate safe storage. I am not against safe storage. I am against bills that mandate safe storage, because in the history of the world, and Joe, let me know your thoughts on this, but in the history of the world, no government whatsoever has ever taken a law and twisted it to its own means to do something mean and nasty to its own citizens, right?
Right. And this is, Otter, this is where we're letting them control the language.
Yeah.
It goes from negligent storage to safe storage.
Yeah.
The original bill was like, if I've got a toddler and I leave a gun on the kiddie table to where they can access it, and that's assuming that they can even pull back a 9.5-pound trigger. We'll get to that later. But
or rack a slide.
Yeah. Well, I all mine are condition 1 that I keep around the house and on me. So I assume that's what every person does. Excuse me if it's not. If you're not comfortable with that, you shouldn't carry a gun at all. But it would be like me leaving a gun on the kiddie table, right? Mm-hmm. That is negligence.
Yeah.
And you should be held liable for that. And what this new bill does is it goes a step further, saying pretty much the same thing that the bill does, but they call it safe storage, whereas I cannot have an unloaded gun near ammunition in my house.
Right.
And that's absolutely ridiculous, because what good is that going to do if somebody breaks in my window right now? It's not going to do me a damn bit of good. Oh, sorry, Mr. Burglar. Give me a second. Let me open up this safe. Yeah. Oh, shit. I fucked up the combo.
Oh, no.
Two more seconds. Hold on. I'm going to shoot you.
Please. I need it. Hang on. I got to grab this other magazine, because this isn't the right magazine. Yeah. I got 10 magazines in here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a ridiculous bill that puts more people at risk. And that's how we allow them to change the language.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to stand up against. It's not like standing up for 2A rights also means standing up for the English language. And, I did better in Spanish in high school than I did in English in high school. But I know, how to read basic sentences and understand common sense that this is a dangerous bill that could put in danger me and my family. And you have to stand up against that. And Mr. Hudson, Representative Hudson, I respect the hell out of him. He has been endorsed by the local gun association there. He has stood up for everything to do with gun rights that has came across his desk. And for, for them to call it a scathing take on it, it's really a common sense take that he has taken ever since he took office.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and he hits all the points. Why? And this is something that we've been seeing all over the country in all these gun control states in regards to, they keep saying, oh, we need one more gun law. We need one more, this terrible tragedy happened. What would stop it? Another law. But you already had a law on the book that was supposed to stop it last time. So now you want another law? And this is the same kind of thing in regards to just telling you what you can do inside your house in regards to how you exercise your fundamental constitutional right. I don't, and that was the gist of my argument with the other person on X was, hey, I store my gun safely, but I also teach my child to not touch the gun unless I'm around and they ask first. And then we talk about the safety rules like we always have. Hell, I taught my youngest the gun safety rules with her Nerf guns when she was 7. That's,
Yep.
I mean, it's a great trick, by the way. Anybody watching?
And
It's a great way to train your kids.
That's how it goes from gun safety to gun responsibility.
Yes.
Away from gun negligence.
Yes.
Because every responsible gun owner knows that there's a difference in safety and negligence.
Yes.
If I'm using a power saw, I know not to, put my arm over the spot that I'm cutting.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's that's dumbassery.
Yes,
but
it is. Yeah.
You've got to make that differentiation. And that's how we've got to retake the language. And instead of saying, hey, we need gun safety laws, we need gun responsible laws, which I don't agree with, but I'm saying we need to teach gun responsibility, not gun safety.
Yeah, we do. We do need to teach safety and responsibility. We need to teach both, honestly, because and that's gonna start with us, the parents, because they're the ones that follow us. Like, I mean, my daughter, every time I'm doing something, it doesn't even have to be firearm related, she wants to be there with me. She looks up to me. I get it because I'm her father and she loves me and I love her. And I want to teach her to be safe and responsible, both when it comes to firearms, as well as a lot of other things in life. It's part of your parental duty. And if you are somebody that owns firearms, that's in there too. But the government shouldn't be telling you how to do that. It's like the same argument with, in regards to, schools telling you, okay, this, the government is saying, this is what we're teaching your kids in school. You have no say. You have no parental rights. Bullshit. I can say, if I agree with some of the stuff, fine. If I don't agree, then we're going to have a discussion because we're either going to find middle ground or I'm shutting your ass down. One of the two.
And when we were kids, like there was permission slips sent home, even for like sex ed.
Yes.
Hey, we're going to teach a controversial topic here. Is it okay that we go into this with your child?
Yeah, that was fun bringing that home from my parents.
Or you went to the gym and just sat there.
Yeah.
Or the cafeteria.
Yeah. If the parents didn't want their child to go through that at that point, and I think there was like a couple of kids in my class. My class wasn't very big. I'm small town guy. And I know there was at least a couple that I can think of off the top of my head that were in the classroom for that stuff. And it's the parents' responsibility. And remember, the parents are the ones that end up signing the checks in the end. It's our tax money that's paying for all this stuff. The government doesn't need to be telling us how to do things, especially when it comes to our constitutional rights. Doesn't matter if it's the First Amendment, Second Amendment, at what point does the government tell us, yeah, you can't exercise your Fourth Amendment rights except in this circumstance? Or
exactly. You've got kids, so we should be able to check your home at any time, no calls. And if you've got a kitchen knife out because you were chopping onions, well, you're going to jail. We're taking your kid, and then we're really going to indock them.
Yeah. How do you enforce something like that? Safe storage mandate. How do you enforce that?
You can't.
You can't. That you're basically the only way you can actually enforce something like that is random spot inspections. And now you're treading on Fourth Amendment rights and Fifth Amendment rights right there.
Yep.
So I don't know how I really don't know how they can get this through. Not to mention the fact that a lot of this was touched on in Heller in regards to the main premise why Dick Heller brought the suit in the first place was because Washington, D.C. said, well, if you're going to get the gun, then that means it's got to be disassembled and locked up. You can't use it.
And I've actually got the Heller decision pulled up here.
Beautiful.
And on page 64 of the opinion of the court, they say that they hold that the district's ban on handgun possession in the home violates the Second Amendment and does its prohibition against rendering any firearm renders any lawful firearm in the home operable for the purpose of immediate self-defense.
Yeah.
So I don't see how any of these laws, other than, don't set it on the kiddies table, I don't see how any of these quote unquote safe storage, I call them unsafe storage laws, can even hold water at all. And it really becomes a problem that, there are a certain sect of people out there that are fine with violating your firearm rights, your privacy rights, your Fourth Amendment rights, your Fifth Amendment rights. It blows my mind that we have gotten to this point in America that that there are people not only wanting that, but actively protesting for that.
Yeah, that just, but then again, I mean, the crazy that's been going on for a long time. So, but let's head on back over to the story. Let's get a little bit more out of it. Seems relevant, especially considering the presentation of this bill tonight. This is Mr. Hudson talking, and much of the debate around this bill tonight has been suggesting that it's the wild, wild west in Minnesota and we don't care about it. Subsection 2 of the chapter, person's guilty, yada, yada, yada. I have yet to see the wild, wild west happening anywhere. I mean, that's a favorite of the gun grabbies and the commie mommies, especially with constitutional carry. That's always a good one.
Yes, they're go-to.
Yeah. Guys, we could table this nonsense right now and move on to taxes or something that actually matters, Hudson declared, because this problem has already been solved. It's already in state law. So again, I ask, what are we doing here? And I'm not going to play the video, but I mean, we get the point. Hudson's entire floor speech is worth watching in the video above. He delivered a claim, measured, but absolutely thorough takedown of the gun storage bill and how it's being used as a political prop to go after gun owners. I'm biased, of course, Tom says, from Bearing Arms, but I don't think the DFL lawmakers who supported the bill ever presented an effective counter to Hudson's argument. Supporters said the measure are aimed at preventing firearms from falling into the hands of those who can't have them and preventing gun injuries and deaths. I just want fewer people to be killed by guns in our state, the Safe Storage Bill's author, Representative Jamie Becker Finn, DFL from Roseville, said. I know this bill won't prevent every single bad thing from happening, but it will prevent some of them, and that is enough for me. Well, you're stepping over the line there, Jamie. You're telling people what they can and can't do in their home in regards to their constitutional rights. And this has already been settled by the Supreme Court, as Joe just read in the Heller decision. So, I mean, why not just tell people they can't smoke in their home because smoking is bad and it's not a constitutional right? Watch how fast that gets slapped with an injunction. Am I wrong?
You're 100% right on that.
I mean, yeah.
At what point will they stop? If they can trample on an actual right that you exercise within your home to protect your family, where do they stop at?
Exactly. And I don't know if you're old enough to remember some of the anti-sodomy laws that were passed here in the U.S. by, unfortunately, Republicans. But I mean, obviously, it was a different time. How do you enforce something like that in the home? I mean, you can't. It's one thing to say that you don't approve of same-sex marriage or anything like that. Okay, I get that. We can have a debate about that. But when you start trying to tell people what they can do in their home, that's a whole nother story. And the person on Twitter was trying to say, well, your rights are curved for the public good. I'm like, where? When? He's like, no rights absolute. Like if you threaten somebody, that's not free speech. Yeah, I get that, but also killing somebody is also immoral and has been illegal even before the Constitution was fucking written.
I mean,
What, what, what's your
that's been
point?
like a pretty common capital crime,
Yeah,
even in the quote unquote Wild West days, even back in Great Britain, even back, going back to the Bible and in the Ten Commandments,
yeah,
thou shalt not murder. You
yes.
don't
Oh,
do
and yes, you got the right translation too. I was gonna, if you said "Thou shall not kill," I was gonna say, "Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute." Okay,
it.
all right. Now I'm being pedantic. I'll take it back. I'm being pedantic.
No worries.
Still, good Catholic boy. I paid attention. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's more of the same thing. These gun grabbies and commie mommies, and let's let's be honest. Let's put it out there. Both sides have done this before. Both sides. Democrats are doing it now. Republicans did it before with, back in the 50s and 60s and probably even in the 70s and that with these anti-gay legislation. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, the whole gay thing has been settled when it comes to that. They can be married. I don't give a damn. Go live your life. Go do what you want to do. Leave me the fuck alone. I don't care. But when it
Exactly.
comes, go ahead, Joe. Go.
I'm sorry. I mean, there's a lot of gay people that don't prescribe to, a lot of the quote unquote activism that is being done
Yeah.
in their name today.
Oh God.
They're like, look, we can live our lives, we can get married. Why are we fighting about this?
Exactly.
Now I feel guilty for, being the way I am because you're singling me out. And it's like, well, I'm not singling you out. I'm saying fucking do it. And, everyone else is, trying to push the envelope further and further and further.
Yeah. And it never goes well because even gay marriage, support for gay marriage has been going down lately because of all this nonsense. And I mean, yeah, maybe I'm being hyperbolic when it comes to the gay marriage, gay marriage and the gay lifestyle and Second Amendment. There's a lot of gay people that are Second Amendment supporters, though. They own firearms to protect themselves. God bless them. But it still doesn't take away the fact that government has always tried to work its way into the home to tell you what you can and can't do. That's the difference between communism and freedom.
And that's one of the whole reasons we are a country is getting away from the government being in our homes and telling us what to do, when to do it, how to do it.
Yep.
And it's mind boggling, really.
Yes. Yep. It is. Going back to the article here, I'm pretty sure that every lawmaker supports that goal of fewer firearm-involved deaths, but that doesn't mean that HF 4300 is a good way to accomplish that goal, especially when it makes it far more difficult for gun owners to access their firearms when they need to do so. Republicans said the storage bill could slow someone seeking out their firearm if an intruder or another threat emerged, and they said it could penalize law-abiding gun owners. This one-size-fits-all storage provision makes me choose between protecting myself as a single woman who lives by herself or being a lawbreaker, said Representative Peggy Bennett, Republican from Alberta Lee. We would need to stop going after law-abiding citizens, law-abiding women, and gun owners like me and start going after the criminals who are using guns to break the law. I see no lie there.
No, Miss Bennett or Representative Bennett, she was absolutely 100% correct. And I don't see why, I really don't see what the controversy is in what has been said in regards to the opposition to this law.
Yeah.
It's
redundant.
It is.
It's just redundant based on what they've already got on the books.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could go round and round on it, but going back to the article, it would still be problematic even if the bill only applied to homes where both firearms and juveniles are present. But Bennett is right that it makes no sense whatsoever to apply this one-size-fits-all mandate to every gun owner in the state. The current statute accomplishes the same goal of preventing unauthorized access by minors while still allowing gun owners the flexibility to decide for themselves how best to store their firearms in a way that a child can't get a hold of them. Hudson's colleagues should have listened to him, but the DFL wants to have something that they can call a victory for their pals in the gun control lobby to crow about. Let's hope that Hudson's logic finds a more receptive audience in the Senate, which would save gun owners a ton of grief and taxpayers some money, because if this bill does become law, a court challenge is sure to follow. I have no doubts. I have no doubts about that. I'm willing to bet the either Firearms Policy Coalition or Minnesota Gun Owners or one of those groups has got a printer in standby mode with plenty of paper and plenty of ink.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Like as soon as I heard it was going to their Senate, I could just hear that printer warming up.
Brrr.
Yep.
Here it goes. Here it goes. Yeah. So this, I mean, we shouldn't take it for granted that it will get defeated in the Senate, even though there's probably a really good chance it will. But never take anything for granted with this kind of stuff. I would really suggest if you do live in Minnesota, if you're watching, you are in Minnesota, then call your rep. Let them know what you think about this. Make your voice heard. Maybe your rep is a lot better than my rep, Elise Stefanik, who still hasn't called me back about why she voted no on the Briggs Amendment for the FISA warrants. I'm still waiting on that. I'm still pissed about that. But yes, call your reps. Let them know how they feel. So, I mean, come on, really.
I have never gotten a call back from Senators Manchin and Capito, nor have I ever gotten a call back from Carol Miller, Representative Carol Miller.
Mm.
And I live in a small state, It's not easy, or it's not hard to say, hey, we got some concerned citizens. But it's like, I'm starting to think I should maybe call and tell them to support stuff so they vote against it because they keep doing the exact opposite of what we want them to.
Right. It must be opposite day in Washington. I don't know.
Always is.
Or even in Albany or was it Charleston down there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So go figure. All right. Next story up. And this is the one that I think is going to cause a lot of comments. Maybe if you are watching on Rumble, hop in the comments there. I do have comments loaded up here on YouTube. So I'd love to get, because I know this is going to be a little bit of a hot button topic. Questions arising about whether Trump is a true 2A ally. And I got to say, we probably should have some discussion about this one, simply because of what happened during his term in regards to like bump stocks and everything else. But President Joe Biden has tripped over himself to pass gun control when the legislature wouldn't oblige. He started pushing executive orders left and right. Now the landscape is very different than where it was under his predecessor. I don't think anyone would disagree, but our gun rights are likely better under Donald Trump presidency 2.0 than Biden. However, the Reload Stephen Gutowski, writing at the Dispatch instead of his own place, argues, that there's reason to be cautious about Trump's Second Amendment support. As presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump sits in a Manhattan courtroom facing one of the several criminal trials that could permanently strip him of his ability to own firearms, he already can't acquire new guns while under felony indictment. Plus, in New York, the gun rights movement faces an unstoppable and under-discussed principle. Its national fortunes are tightly entwined with those of an unpopular politician who has threatened to cross them before and just got done crossing similarly situated pro-life activists. Gun owners haven't been on shakier ground in recent years, and their marquee organization, the National Rifle Association, is poorly positioned to steady things this time around. And we are going to be talking about the NRA a little bit later on in the show. This decline might explain why gun rights activists seem to have lost power, even among Republicans who were indifferent to their votes during the presidential primary. As much as the Republican primary was filled with pulled punches from Trump's opponents, they at least occasionally tried to draw a policy contrast with the former president. Former Vice President Mike Pence and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis attacked Trump for being insufficiently committed to the pro-life cause on several occasions. No one did the same for his commitment on the pro-gun cause, which was perplexing since the Trump administration's accomplishments on guns were actually very similar to its pro-life accomplishments. Trump didn't usher in much legislative change, but as they did with the Dobbs case overturning abortion protections, his Supreme Court appointments delivered a ruling long sought by gun activists, the expansion of recognized Second Amendment protections in New York Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin, NYSERPA v. Bruin, Trump's pro-gun bona fides beyond Supreme Court appointments are probably more mixed than his pro-life ones, which should have opened him up for criticism from his Republican challengers. Though he signed a bill rolling back an Obama-era restriction and established gun manufacturers as essential businesses during the pandemic, he also unilaterally imposed the bump stock ban using ATF rulemaking to bypass Congress, which is currently being challenged as unconstitutional at the Supreme Court. All right, we'll stop there real quick and we'll talk about this. What are your thoughts on this, Joe? What do you think about Trump's record with the Second Amendment? All other things aside, pro-life, economics, all that kind of stuff.
Personally, I don't think Trump himself is pro-Second Amendment, but I do think that he recognizes that his base is, and I do think that he recognizes that because of his base and the feedback that he got when he said, well, we'll take their guns first and then go to court, or however he worded it. Yeah. I think from the feedback that he got from that and the support that his supporters have for the Second Amendment, I think he realizes how important that is. And that's the one thing I will give him props on, is backing off of that we'll take their guns first comment, because he said it like a handful of rallies and got booed, and then he backed all the way the fuck off of it. I don't think he's personally pro 2A, but I think that as an administrative person, he respects it enough to not attack it, especially after the bump stock ban got struck down.
Yeah. California. I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and to the quote saying that the gun rights people are, are on shaky ground or whatever. The younger gun owners, the people that are actually active in the 2A community right now, they don't support the NRA. Fucking let it sink, and we're going to talk about that later. But, let the NRA be on shaky ground. We've got GOA, NAGR, the
FPC, SAF. I mean,
yeah, we've got people that's got our back that are actually looking out for it, on the state level, on the federal level, and are doing something about it. So to say that it's on shaky ground, I think that's a very misguided comment. Like, let the, feed the NRA to the left, feed them to the commie monkeys, feed them to the anti-rights brigades. Let them eat that dog. Let them tear that corpse until the bone is picked, because we are actually doing shit on the state level, at the court level. Let them pick it. And as far as Trump goes, I think he sees what his core base feels about that. And I think that's why he backed off of it. And the criticism that he got from the bump stock ban, and especially him losing in court, Trump doesn't like to lose. Well, maybe I shouldn't fucking do that again. And that was one of my biggest criticisms against Trump, was the bump stock ban. And you had these FUDs out here. You had these NRA supporters, these quote unquote boomers, saying, "Oh, well, it's a useless accessory. We don't need it. It's useless. There's no need to have a bump stock." Jerry McAuliffe, I don't know if any of your guests know him, or any of your viewers know him, but I mean, the dude can work a revolver. He was the fastest person to, throw down, I believe it was 12 shots on target with a revolver. I mean, dude is amazing. Look up his videos if you don't know who I'm talking about. He tried using a bump stock, and he could fire a regular AR faster without the bump stock. The bump stock was originally made for people with shoulder problems, specifically those that had came back from, I believe it was Desert Storm, but I could be wrong on that. It could be an earlier device than that. Don't quote me on that. But it was meant for people with disabilities and shoulder issues, so they could, get the recoil without it actually affecting their shoulders, because it took the hit on it. I can do the same thing a bump stock can do with a rubber band, or holding my thumb to my belt loop. For us, me and you, like, if your shoulder's good, it is pointless, but it is a necessary thing. And if you can, and I've always said this, if you can ban one accessory, you can ban all accessories.
Yes.
So,
and doing it by executive fiat is just sidestepping the whole legislative process, where if you do want to ban it, if you think you got the backing, then do it the right way. go through the legislature. Good luck, because we'll probably fight you on it, and we'll go from there. And as Costas said last Friday's show when he was a guest here, it's easier to fight these things and less costly to fight them in the legislature than it is in the courtroom, and plus a lot quicker, because you got to deal with all these appeals and everything else. And then do you get the injunction? No, they're not going to give us the injunction, and you got to move on from there. So that's always been the thing with that. It's easier to fight it in the legislature than it is in the courts. And if you're going to try to do it by fiat, we're going to call you out and we're going to bring it on to you. And California Open Carry made a very good point here. He doesn't like Trump, but Biden is infinitely worse. Totally agree. Life rarely gives the opportunity to choose between good and evil. The choice is almost always the lesser evil. Trump is the lesser evil. And I agree. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, that was the kind of thing that led me to vote for Trump the first time, when he was running against Hillary. I was more of a Bernie guy. I was like, okay, this sounds good with Bernie, a lot of the stuff. And then I did buy a little bit of the bullshit that the media was saying about Trump, because yeah, he's a new, I still have a chip on my shoulder about, New York City people. Not all of them, just a few. There's a few that I really don't like. But overall, that's how I felt about Trump. And then the thing that just opened my eyes to the whole bullshit with Trump, all the stuff the media was saying and everything, was the whole was the whole good people on both sides thing. I was like, what? He said no. I gotta find that clip, because they were just giving you those snippets like they always do. And I have been kind of like, a little suspicious about that kind of stuff, because if most people don't know, I've worked in radio for 30 years. Broadcasting, I've been a broadcaster for 30 years. And I've done news, so I've seen how the sausage gets made. Thankfully, a lot of the stations I worked at were not like mainstream media, but now the local stations have kind of gotten infected with it as well. But needless to say, that was the point that I said, this is all bullshit. Trump is the much better choice. And I'm glad I voted for him instead of Hillary, because Hillary was just really bad.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to the lesser two evils argument, I hate that.
Yeah.
I really like Trump. Like, overall, I think he did a great job. But I compare him a lot to Reagan. Good for the economy, bad for individual liberties.
Yeah.
And you said it yourself, like, you worked in radio. You see how the shit's done.
Yeah.
And you've seen how it changed. You had guys like Howard Stern and Ron Imus. And now Howard Stern is simping for the Dems, even though he was always a liberal, at heart. He goes full on whatever the media tells him instead of what he says, unlike, guys like Bill Mayer, who I can't stand, but I respect, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is stuck with his values from day one till today. And he calls out his own side just as much as he calls out the other side, quote unquote sides.
And the funny thing about, bringing up Stern just is that back in the day when he was on terrestrial radio, before he went to satellite, he was the bad boy of the airwaves. The reason why people tuned in, it all started back with like DC 101 when he was working in DC, and he started his shock jock thing. People loved it. He went into it. And then the FCC started throwing fines at him for indecency and all this other kind of stuff. And then he fought back. He was the rebel with a cause. Now, here we are, like, 40 years later or so. Now he's on satellite. The FCC is gone. There's no opposition whatsoever. Don Imus, he's cold and dead in the grave. So that feud is gone as well. All he does now is he can say whatever he wants. Nobody's going to stop him. He's making millions of dollars because they decided that, he's not really relevant nowadays, but still, he gets Joe Biden on there. Before, he wouldn't have had any president on, but now he's sucking at the teat. He's basically, he's like the Ramones. He's sold out. He's sold out. All the Rage Against the Machine is now Rage for the Machine. Howard's the same way. So that's what you're going to see. You're not going to see any bad boy or anything like that. And when it comes to the lesser of two evils, I'll take the local radio guy as opposed to Howard, because they're the lesser of two evils, even though they still simp for BS most of the time anyway.
Yeah, I got sidetracked there. Like,
yeah, it's
sorry about that. I didn't mean to derail there. Back to the lesser two evils. I don't like that argument, because there has to be some good to balance everything out.
Yeah.
I was a Rand Paul guy in the 2016 primaries. By the time it got to May, whenever our primaries are, I still voted for Rand Paul just out of respect for Rand Paul, even though he was already out of the race, and Trump was the presumptive winner at that time, just like he is now. But picking between the lesser of two evils, a lot of people have done that in the past, whether it was with Reagan, Bush Sr., who got me into politics, Bush Jr., Trump. I don't like that. If you feel that you are in that mindset, you need to vote third party, because there are more people out there that feel like you than what you realize. And it's not this duopoly. So, if you are a single issue voter, which I respect, whether it be Israel, 2A rights, energy independence, the economy, whatever your single issue is, vote your heart. And, I try to look at the bigger picture. The things that Trump did pass that were anti-2A, we were able to knock down in courts, even though it was by fiat.
Yeah.
So I take that as, okay, so he's not going to go too extreme.
Right.
And he does, this and this right. He does this and this wrong.
Right.
Okay, 3-2. I like the guy. Let's get at it. But I think he respects his base enough, especially after that court decision that came down after he was out of office.
Right.
I think that he'll look at that loss, see the crowd's reaction to his, take the guns first.
Right.
And I think he'll look at that and be like, well, maybe I should reintroduce the Hearing Protection Act that I pushed coming into office, let die after the Vegas shooting, and maybe, attack that and regain that Second Amendment community's trust.
Right.
But I do agree that he did lose the trust of a lot of the 2A community on that.
He did.
In his actions.
He did.
Yeah. And I'm not going to deny that. And I'm not here to sway anybody. It's just, he did a bad thing. He laid off of an even worse thing, which Dan Crenshaw didn't do. One-eyed McCain. And, right now, I think as far as policy goes, he's neutral on it. He needs to hammer down, and to show that he is actually a 2A supporter, he needs to start talking about the Hearing Protection Act, even though that's getting challenged in Texas right now by the FPC, I believe. And he really needs to hammer down that he's going to, maybe take some steps to executively, tear down part of the NFA or even the ATF's power, or suggest that they be maybe not even completely defunded so he doesn't lose all the votes from the moderates, but that to regain the trust of the community to say, hey, look, maybe they do have too much power. Let's step it down a notch.
Yeah. And COC here, California Open Carry, says third-party candidates are often the greatest of evils, but when they are the least of evils, they have no chance of winning. And we kind of seen that kind of, before in regards to, we've got like RFK right now, who threatens to steal votes from Biden just because there are Democrats that really are not too happy with Biden, and RFK is coming in and he's kind of giving them a more moderate kind of spiel. But I mean, he's I don't trust him when it comes to 2A, especially. I mean, I guess does that make me a single policy voter? I don't know, but that's how I feel. And then going back, another example, Ross Perot, one of the first presidential elections that I got to vote in when I turned 18, was with Ross Perot. I wanted to vote for Ross, and then we got what we got, but still, it's that double-edged sword when it comes to those third-party candidates, when you're dealing with the big two that you just don't like. And then you're kind of in that rut, and God forbid two of them are like are alike in regards to 2A, where they don't like Second Amendment, whereas we kind of lucked out with Trump in regards to he's reading his base, he's reading the room. Whether you want to call it playing the base or listening to his base or whatever, I think he's doing what a good political candidate should do, is listen to their constituents, go trust what they do, what they want to do. And if it goes bad, and it's like, okay, we tried it. I would have more respect for him if he tried to get a bump stock ban passed. I wouldn't like it, but if he got a bump stock ban through the legislature instead of this whole executive order BS. But,
exactly. And we've gotten to the point where I looked at this chart that over time of presidents that use their executive powers,
mm-hmm.
and through the late 1700s and the 1800s up until shortly around Lincoln, maybe after Lincoln, it started like really climbing up to like even the double digits. And by the time you get to the Bushes, Clinton, Obama, the number just explodes on the amount of executive orders that they write.
Yeah.
And that, that is a problem in and of itself. It's a different topic for a different day. But the fact that we allow somebody to just, hey, we need to do this, let's just sign it and see where it goes in court, I think that's really where we went astray, just as a nation. I'm gonna keep it on track here. Let me sorry about there's a point to this. Yeah. So, like you said, if he would have went through the legislature, it's one thing. He did it this way, it's another. But at what point do we say, hey, we have to stand up for our rights, whether it's through that executive order or through the legislative process, that we're just not going to comply? They can't arrest us all. The last time I checked, there was 173 active field agents, 173,000 active field agents. There's no way that they can investigate and arrest everybody. So the only thing to do is non-compliance.
Yeah.
And it comes down to the point where we've got men like Dexter that are, looking at a long bid, up at Rikers right now that really needs our support.
Yeah.
Because he did nothing other than, what a lot of us do in the weekends, but because of the state that he lives in, and that went through their legislative process. And it's a very unconstitutional process that they passed, and a very unconstitutional law that they passed.
Yeah.
Now you've got innocent men like him that are 2A supporters that, Trump needs to mention men like him to really regain the trust of the 2A community.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would go a long way, especially with Dexter Taylor's, situation that he's in right now. And, and I'm, right now in New York State, sadly. I'm still working on the wife to get the hell out of this place, but New York is going to be a tough nut to crack, even with Trump doing the kind of campaigning he's doing down in the city, while he's having to deal with these court cases down there. We're gonna run into it. If it's not here, it's going to be Cali. It's going to be Illinois now. It's going to be Maryland, Delaware, all that stupid crap. So it just goes to show that we really got to be really cognizant of who we're looking at and who we're voting for. And COC made a good point with, voting third party. It, like I said before too, that's it. Perot unfortunately gave us 2 terms of Clinton where we could have been better off with, Bush, who is a rhino, and it's kind of, it's the devil, basically. It's the devil, and which sucks because especially for libertarians, there have been some good libertarian candidates that would most likely be very good with 2A, but I think getting back to the whole question of Trump, I mean, he's more 2A than what we've got now. So I think he would be the better choice myself. And
I can agree with
that as you will.
I can agree with that, but when it comes to our rights,
mm-hmm.
At what point do we say, well, this guy's better than this guy, but then the next guy is about the same and the worst guy gets elected, and we, let's say he's a -4 on the scale.
Yeah.
And then we get a -3, and then a -5 gets the next election, and we elect a -4. It at some point we got to say, hey, we're chipping away at our rights, and we've got to, take a stand for our rights and actually do something about that, which, at least as far as, SCOTUS is concerned, maybe not all the districts, because there's a lot of splits and a lot of people going against both Heller and Bruin.
Yeah.
That, not all the courts are agreeing, but at least SCOTUS is standing up for us and, helping us take that back. And that's why, I preach, take control of your state and make sure that your state protects your rights, because at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff comes down to state level decisions.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people, I think, fail to vote because they're more focused on what the media tells them to. Hey, Trump or Biden. But really, it's your senators, it's your congressmen, it's your state legislature. Even if you don't have a preemption bill, it comes down to your mayors even and your city council.
Yeah.
And people really need, there's been a few people ask me, well, how do you get involved? How do you help right this ship? Trump did this or Biden's trying to do that. Fucking vote in your state fucking elections and, help elect the right fucking candidate that will stand up to them and tell your legislature to get in line and fucking do their job,
Yeah. And before anybody, brings in the argument, Democrats cheat and all that kind of stuff. Okay. That's a whole nother discussion in regards to that kind of stuff. But with 2A, yeah, you got to vote for what you believe in, the candidate that's going to best align with your values. And I want to move on a little bit more now with the article. Now, it should be noted that the bump stock ban was done with at least some NRA support, which, yeah, we're going to be talking about the NRA next. But it was considered preferable to the bill working its way through Congress that would have banned anything that facilitated people pulling a trigger faster, including potentially aftermarket triggers. But the truth is that this wasn't the only moment in which Trump did something that shouldn't sit well with gun rights supporters. Let's not forget that he was all about the idea of taking guns, then providing due process rights. That's not a pro-gun position. Now, Trump wasn't exactly an anti-gun president. Despite this, he did some things we didn't like, but he wasn't Biden. While he did more for gun control than Obama, that was only because Obama knew we'd never get away with it. But that presidency also involved a lot of the NRA being knee deep in helping to get him elected. That was the NRA of old, where it was strong and seemingly unstoppable. While I do think that in time the NRA will either rebound or someone else will step up to fill the void, the truth of the matter is that it won't be in this election cycle. As such, there's little chance that Trump will feel nearly as much pressure to maintain at least some semblance of gun rights support as he did in his first term, especially since re-election will be completely off the table. Does that mean we should just vote for Biden? Hardly. We already know who Joe Biden is on guns, and it's pretty clear that Trump is more likely to be the better choice for gun owners who aren't looking to vote third party. But we probably shouldn't expect a pro-gun president who will toss all of those problematic executive orders out the window on day one and push to expand gun rights in Congress either. And He's right. Tom is right, because I have yet to see the perfect gun rights candidate. So
In this election cycle, I 100% agree. I do still think that Tom has given too much credence to the NRA and how long they were relevant, especially as I'm in my 30s.
yeah.
I look back, even though for I guess it was my 18th birthday, my dad, lifelong NRA member,
Mhm.
gave me a lifelong NRA membership, like $200 or something like that.
Right.
Um, you look back at the history of what all they supported. They have supported a lot of gun control legislation. And it doesn't, the more people look into it, the deeper you get into the 2A community, the more you realize that is the devil, and that's the devil you don't want in your life. Get behind me, Satan.
Yeah.
Throw some holy water on it and get it the fuck out of here. Feed it to the wolves. Cast that demon into the swine. Let the swine run off the cliff, as the parable goes.
Yeah. I agree. And we're going to start touching on the NRA here.
I know. I know it's coming up.
It's coming up, baby. It's coming. It's coming. But before it does get here, really quick, I just want to remind you, we got a merch store, OttermanEmpire.creator-spring.com. Head on over there and check out what we've got. We got t-shirts, hoodies, and all that. And like I said when the show opened, this is helping to fund not only this channel, but the gaming channel as well. Either way you like. Either way you like. What it's helping to support is content, basically. Subscriptions to websites like Bearing Arms, like AmmoLand, all of those kinds of websites that we draw our content from. And, some of it is for paying members. This helps us be able to get access to that. And as well as make you look stylish. Let's be honest. Who doesn't want an otter on the front of their shirt? Come on. I mean, wait a minute. No, Pudge doesn't want that. That's okay. But still, you probably want to check out some of our stuff. OttermanEmpire.creator-spring.com. Go check it out. I'm betting you're going to find something you like and you're going to love it. All right. That's all I got to say on that now. But let's go ahead. Let's get into it. Let me switch this over. Oh, baby. Here we go. Present NRA reformers win seats on the board of directors. This is from our buddy Cam Edwards over at Bearing Arms. And once again, I must thank Cam for allowing me to steal his opening monologue for my show, even though it's just the reading of the Second Amendment. But thank you, Cam, anyway. I appreciate it. He doesn't even know I exist. Well, when I reached out to Kansas Judge Philip Journey yesterday to see if he could join me on Bearing Arms Cam and Company, my plan was to talk about his involvement in a new federal lawsuit challenging the ATF's revised rules on who is engaged in the business of dealing firearms. Journey's a named plaintiff in the litigation brought by 21 Republican AGs, and that litigation was the first order of business during our conversation. But most of the discussion centered around some breaking news that Journey shared with me: his return to the NRA's board of directors, along with the election of 4 other candidates as reformers. And just a quick note, I'm going to read through the whole article before we get into this, because this is going to be a good one. All right. Journey says, in addition to his own election, Jeff Knox, Rocky Marshall, and Dennis Fusaro were all elected to 3-year terms, while current board member and reformer Owen Buzz Mills won re-election for another 3-year term. As John Richardson notes over at Only Guns and Money, the election also resulted in several long-term board members losing their seats. There are some real surprises here. First, the 2 ex-presidents, David Keene and John Sigler, did not get elected. Second, that Kim Rhode was not elected given her Olympic history, and that she was a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the state of California. Third, that a sitting officer, David Coy, finished in 22nd place, and friend of Susan, Janet Nice, in 24th place. I am not sure why Carolyn Meadows, who was too ill to testify in either person or by video in the New York trial, finished in the top 10. It could be name recognition, or it could be a sympathy vote. It's my understanding that Wayne Anthony Ross of Alaska is also rather ill. These results were all one could ask for and more, There were some who won that I'd rather not see on the board, but they are more balanced out by Phil, Rocky, Buzz, Jeff, Rick, and Dennis. I'm disappointed that Gun Owners Action League Executive Director Jim Wallace wasn't reelected, and I hope that he runs for the 76 board member seat, which will be chosen during the upcoming NRA annual meeting. But as NRA benefactor life member who's been incredibly frustrated with the troubles that have plagued the NRA over the past 5 years, I'm also heartened that members elected every one of the candidates on the reform slate of candidates. So what's the next step? If we're all standing out in a field by ourselves, we're not going to get much done, Journey told me. But the pressure from the lawsuit brought by New York AG Tish James, Fat Tish as I call her, is on them. And though I know the judge will not disband the NRA, he very well could dissolve the board or put a special master in charge of us, overseeing us to make sure no one's buying $250,000 suits or flying on Gulfstreams again. I think the upcoming board meeting and the annual meeting will determine what we try to do in New York court. So if everything goes well, if everyone is on their best behavior, if we get real change in the board meeting, which I'm hoping we do, then we can go back to the court and say, I think we've got this from here. Journey adds that while allowing the NRA to govern itself is important, if the organization can't bring back members who have departed over the last few years, the legal battles won't really matter. If the membership does not come back, if we can't clean it up to their satisfaction, I doubt it will survive. So we have to clean it up. We have to be transparent. We have to be open and honest with members, and we have to right the ship and rebuild services. I don't think the NRA has any political power inherent in itself. It flows from the membership, and when we lose members, we lose power. Journey predicts that this year's annual meeting could result in the biggest shakeup of the NRA since the 77 meeting in Cincinnati, where the organization's old guard was ousted in favor of new leadership that was more focused on defending the right to keep and bear arms in the political arena. The NRA's politics won't be the primary issue this year. Instead, it will be the association's governance that's under the microscope, including the search for the next generation of leadership. Second Amendment community is better off with a strong NRA, and while the election of the reform slate doesn't guarantee that the ship will be righted, I believe it's a big step in the right direction. Whew. Okay. We got all that out of the way. So let's let it fly. Joe, what do you think?
I mean, if we really want to make the NRA the boogeyman that the left makes him out to be, let's turn him into Michael Myers. Let's reset the whole board. Let's get rid of fucking everybody, because, it is good to hear that, even insiders that are, saying, hey, if we want real political influence, we've got to listen to the base. That is great. That sounds great. I want to see some words or some action to those words.
Yeah.
One thing that, Wayne LaPierre came out also, oh, well, we're going to keep your rights. Let's ban bump stocks. Like, motherfucker. What the fuck? The fact that there are so many board members goes to show you where your money goes. Your money's not going to the lawsuits. They're not going, lining politicians' pockets. All they're doing is saying, hey, we've been around for forever. You need our stamp of approval. Vote this way. And it's become an institution that it's like Yale and Harvard. We've seen how they've all went to shit. You give them you get our stamp of approval, and you're a shoo-in in your district. Well, guess what? There are local groups that have been taken over. But the fact that there's a shakeup, that they have seen from the inside that, hey, maybe we're fucking up, is a good sign, in my opinion. And I think this might be a good first step. But, we can celebrate that, they're kicking out all these board members that are just fuds and idiots and don't know their ass from a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
To, people that might actually put some, that it's actually got some teeth and will actually pressure these legislative people, congressmen, senators, what have you, to the point to where, hey, maybe we need to start voting 2A, or, if I want their approval because it is just an institution and it is just a rubber stamp, maybe I do actually need to stand up for what my constituents want, because they are happy with the people that are on the board now. And, this whole waste of money, because they've been wasting money for decades.
Yeah.
And the fact that got exposed was a good thing for gun owners. You know, I know the left celebrates it. Oh, wow, they're embezzling money. Motherfucker, you take money from George Soros. How about you shut the fuck up and just stay quiet for 5 seconds, suck
Yeah.
on your little lollipop.
Yeah.
You know, suck on your dildo for next a minute or two and let us figure our shit out while you don't figure your shit out. So overall, I believe this is a very, very good thing. And maybe this might right that ship before it hits that lighthouse. I don't think it will, but if this is the first step in their plan of rebranding, I am 100% for it because it should have happened a decade ago.
Yeah. This is not the NRA of Charlton Heston. This is not the NRA of Ben-Hur. It is that NRA is gone. The NRA that had NRA TV, where actually Cam Edwards was working on NRA TV. Dana Loesch was working on NRA TV. That NRA is gone. Wayne pretty much put that one to bed, as well as a lot of the other board members who were. And if you don't know how much a Gulfstream costs to charter, trust me, it's expensive.
It ain't cheap.
It is not cheap. I'm a student pilot, and where I take my lessons, the aviation company, they do charter. And I've had discussions with my CFI about how much those planes cost, because I've gotten nice and up close to those planes, and they're beautiful planes. I would love to be able to fly them. I'm not certified for that kind of stuff yet, but I'm working on it. But anyway, it's not cheap. You're talking $11,000 an hour in some cases, depending on the plane and where the destination is. Fuel is crazy. And then, you got your pilots, because you got to have two pilots. And then if you got cabin crew, like a flight attendant or something like that, that's going to jack it up even more. Still, the NRA that we used to have that actually did fight for stuff for us, it's gone. It's dead and buried. Now, the corpse seems to be getting picked over by a lot on the left. And that's, you know what? I think that's good. You know why? Because that's what they're focused on. Never interrupt your enemy while they're making a mistake. And I'm sure as hell not going to bother letting them know that the NRA is nothing like what they think it is, or that the 2A community even supports the current NRA how it is right now. Reformers, I want to wait and see what happens. I'm not going to say yay or nay either way on that until I see some results coming out of these new people. Then I'll make my determination. The old NRA, yeah, they were shit. They were shit. I was a member of the NRA when I was in my early 20s, because I was that focused on the Second Amendment. This was back during the assault weapons ban with Clinton. And I was focused on that. I became a member of the NRA. The only thing I hated about the NRA was they kept calling me on the phone asking for money. I was like, I'm going to pay my membership dues. Send me American Rifleman. I'm happy. Don't worry about it. You'll get money every year. I'm a poor kid. I can't send you money every other month. Which, okay, but still, go with the NRA. Just I think this is good. And Tish James literally did us a favor. She did us a favor when she started suing the NRA, because it exposed a lot of the stuff that was going on, a lot of stuff people were saying was going on, but nobody could had hard evidence until Tish got in there and got discovery and was able to show this stuff. Now, I think Tish has basically possibly, and tell me what you think about this idea. She has possibly broken the seventh seal when it comes to a new NRA. Now, will it come to pass? I don't know, but we're definitely going to get a stronger NRA based on people that could potentially get in there. Because right now it's shit. The future.
Sorry.
No, I was just, I'm kind of vamping now, but I mean, where do you think? And Stuart here, I want to highlight Stuart's quote again here. Just got in, but at least the leftist lead of the NRA is gone. I love to see people like those in GOA take over the board. I think that would be wonderful, but I don't know if anything like that's going to happen. I think there's still some rot in the NRA that's got to get yeeted. Thoughts?
Yeah, and with them being different organizations, I don't know if that would even be legal. I'm not a legal expert. That just
Yeah,
interest, but
yeah, I don't know if there's like a conflict with different organizations having the same members or anything like that. I'm not sure, but
yeah, I mean, we could possibly get a stronger NRA, and just for the viewers, I'm using my back-facing camera because something's fucked with my front-facing camera, so I can't see body cues from
somebody say something.
If it ever sounds like I'm trying to interrupt them, I'm going to blame it on lag, even though it's just because I'm looking at just a gray.
We try. In Joe's defense, we were talking about 20 minutes before we started the stream. I was helping him troubleshoot, trying to get, because his camera wouldn't work. And we had it all set up and everything was good to go. And then somehow, in between us hanging up on the phone and then getting into the room for the show, his camera flipped over to the other side. I don't know, but needless to say.
But I don't know if I necessarily agree that it's the 7th still that she broke, but it's definitely the 6th. Because we could very possibly get a stronger NRA out of this. And I really hope we do, just because they've got that name brand.
Yeah.
But like you said, never interrupt your enemy. You can let them eat that corpse, pick it to the bone, leave the bone dry, because I'm from a very rural area. I've seen what a coyote does to a deer, and then after the coyote leave, the buzzards come in and get the rest of it. And right now, the buzzards are over that deer. So we either send them to pet cemetery, like it seems like the reformers are doing, or we let them pick it dry while we strengthen all these other very pro-2A groups and create our own thing. And one thing that I don't think a lot of, I use the term old guard a lot.
Yeah.
Most people know what I mean when I say that. I use that with the Republican Party a hell of a lot. One thing, the old guard, even though, they had their own things going on. They had Korea, they had Vietnam, whatever. And those were the people that were supporting the NRA. Mm-hmm. You've got a whole generation right now growing up that dealt with, they might have dealt with Kosovo, but they dealt with Afghanistan and Iraq.
Yeah.
They come home and they're a little bit more radicalized because the shit that they were allegedly fighting over there is happening in real time over here. So the vehemency the fervency of their beliefs and what they're willing to fight for, they're not going to put up with this political bullshit of, oh, well, we need to compromise. No, there's no fucking compromise. There's no fucking negotiation. This is America. We have rights. This is what we were supposed to be fighting for. This is what we saw people bleed and die for over there. This is what we're going to stand our ground on over here. And we're not going to allow politicians just to strip that away. We're not going to allow lobbyists to negotiate it away. We're not negotiating. We're not going to comply. We're going to make sure that the courts have our backs, and we're going to fucking, things need to fucking change, or things are going to get real fucking bad.
Yeah. It's yeah. And the 2A community has, I mean, the 2K, I can't even talk anymore. They've ripped into the NRA for years. And I mean, like you said, the corpse has been picked. The buzzards are finishing up. They're starting to untie their bibs and wipe their beaks with the napkins. It's done. So what's left is, I say, let the NRA, let it hang out there. Let's see what nature, what course nature gives it, and go from there. But yeah, I'm not expecting anything too grandiose right away. I'm optimistic, but I'm not holding my breath either. I'm hitting my microphone with my hat. just because, I mean, just they burnt so many people, so many members were fed up every single time. I don't know how many times I heard somebody, where's the NRA? Look at what they're doing. Where's the NRA on this? Why is the NRA quiet? What's going on? I mean, the old guard basically help, put us out to dry. They put us out there in our skivvies and said, good luck. And meanwhile, so I would love to see, if you're not in the Rumble chat, come on over to Rumble right now and get in the chat if you have an account, or set up an account really fast and let us know what you think, even in the comments down below after we're done with this stream tonight. We would love to see and hear what you have to say in regards to this. This has been a contentious thing with the two-way community for a while, for a long time. So I mean, what do you think? Let us know, chat. Do you think it's going to make a difference? Do you think it's done forever? It's over. I mean, let us know. But this debate is definitely not going to be done. People are going to be talking about this for a while, and I'm sure these guys are going to be under a microscope like nobody else is in regards to, what they do on the board. So,
and one thing we got to address, and I hate to address it, but we kind of touched on it. Some of these people are a little bit younger.
Yeah.
And because there's so many salaried positions that donations, membership fees, everything goes to, there's a lot of them that's got to realize, hey, I like this money. Unless they cut the board in, to like a 10th, which it should be, unless they do that, like, I want to keep my job, maybe actually should, help be the change to this organization that it needs. Because at the end of the day, it is all about money for, people like that, like the high-end lobbyists.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a lobbyist. I do the shit for free in my spare time.
Yeah. Money talks, BS walks.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, we'll have to see, but yeah, don't be afraid to jump into the comments. Let us know what you think, or if you're on your way into Rumble, even though we're kind of moving on from the story, that's fine. Let us know. We can always kind of circle back Jen Psaki style, even though she never circled back, and kind of go from there. So, all right. So let's look at our next story here, which is a little close to home here. 4 New York men charged with trafficking ghost guns. And when they say New York, they're not saying New York City. This is upstate New York, central New York area. Let's see here. New York State has extensive gun control laws. Tell me about it. Including a ban on homemade unserialized firearms. What the media loves to call ghost guns because it sounds scarier than hobby. The laws against them aren't particularly new either. They've been on the books for a little while now, which means that if they were going to work, they'd already be working. And to be fair, to some degree, it can be argued that they are working. At least that's true if you meant for them to keep law-abiding citizens from making their own firearms for their own use and amusement. If you mean for them to actually stop criminals, well, they're not working at all. And here's where we get to the meat. 4 suspects are charged with 35 crimes relating to a gun trafficking operation in central New York. According to New York Attorney General Tish James, Fat Tish, 3 central New York men and 1 South Carolina man were charged with various counts of criminal possession and criminal sale of a firearm for their involvement in the firearms trafficking operation. The investigation, led by AG's Organized Crime Task Force, recovered 31 firearms and receivers, including 18 ghost guns or parts used to make ghost guns, quote unquote. They should have quotes on there. Dozens of high-capacity magazines and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. The following firearms and components seized include 9 Polymer 80 AR-15 style unfinished frames receivers used to assemble, quote-unquote, ghost guns. 9 unserialized and unregistered Polymer 80 ghost gun pistols, quote-unquote, ghost guns. 9 serialized unregistered firearms, 3 AR-15 style rifles, 1 7.62 assault rifle. We should put assault rifles, don't you think, in quotes as well? Dozens of magazines, including several extended magazines classified as high-capacity ammunition, feeding devices, most likely 30-round magazines, hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Name a gun person who doesn't have hundreds of rounds. The investigation began in June 2022, originally into two sources of illegal firearms trafficking, including ghost guns in the Syracuse area. All right, let's stop there and let's kind of unpack some of this. One quick thing.
I wanted to ask you about that 100 of rounds of ammunition, because when it says hundreds and not, thousands, is there like an ammo limit you can have in New York?
Only in magazines. I don't know of any law in New York that says I'm limited to how much ammo I can own. But they did recently pass background checks for purchasing ammo in New York, which I promptly said, fuck that noise. And when I went to Virginia, I bought a bunch of ammo. So there you go, Tish. But the thing is, too, Polymer 80 can't sell in New York State. So right off the bat, the law is not working.
So I want to go on record here.
Okay.
And say that if you are helping a friend out or an associate or somebody you meet on the dark web do something illegal out of state, do not do your business in state. In the state that it is. Knock off $100 for gas money for them and meet in a neutral state. I'm just going to say that for anybody that is either doing something similar to what these men were doing or otherwise.
Yeah. I get you. I get what you're saying.
I don't like, actually something like this I do condone, but like if you're going to do it, like if you're going to do something illegal, do it smart.
Yeah. Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
But then again,
yeah, I actually took a lot of notes on this stuff. My camera gets shaky looking at them because I got my laptop propped up on halfway on the notepad. So if it gets shaky whenever we get to certain parts of this, excuse that. This whole thing is just ridiculous. This man comes up from South Carolina where all this is legal, which it is in most states, and gives it to somebody that he knows. And I don't see why this should be illegal. And well, you're going to get to it in the article, so I'll shut up for a second.
All right. Yeah. I mean, this is the same kind of stuff. So that basically Dexter Taylor is dealing with right now. But all right. So let's go on with the story, and then we'll come back around. Of course, we don't know much about the 9 unserialized, unregistered firearms noted above. My guess is that they weren't so much unserialized as had the serial numbers removed, but that's just a hunch. If they were 3D printed, for example, I'd suspect they'd have said that, if for no other reason than to potentially justify restrictions on printers. And I've got something to say about that later. It should be noted that Polymer 80 doesn't ship to New York, meaning that this wasn't on them. This is someone who made an order, had it delivered out of state, then someone somehow transported to New York either as a gun or just as a raw, incomplete receiver. The truth is that for all the anti-ghost gun hysteria and the attempts to deal with it, things like this aren't particularly common compared to more traditional manufactured guns, and even if it were, that ship has long set sail. Laws don't stop the non-law abiding. It's kind of in the description of such people right there for everyone to see. If there's a way to get their hands on something they're not allowed to have, they'll find a way. And some creative soul will find a way to provide it. A much better use of time and resources would be to try and convince the would-be market for such guns to walk a different path, one where they can lawfully own firearms because they're productive members of society rather than criminal leeches. Okay. Now, circling back to the whole, the restrictions on printers. New York State has some Nimrod in the New York State Senate decided to submit a bill, which, as far as I know, really hasn't gone anywhere. in regards to having to do a background check to purchase a 3D printer, which, yeah, I'm seeing you. I'm seeing that smirk, Joe. I'm seeing that smirk. It's, I mean, that's the answer for everything, I guess, is, oh, we'll just do a background check. We'll stop them that way. No, you won't. And I can give you a billion different examples in regards to passing laws that nobody will pay attention to online, especially buying printers. They'll do it just like, these guys most likely did. Buy it, have it shipped to somebody out of state, and then have somebody either ship it to them in an unmarked box or, just drive it up or whatever. Because it's what are we doing here, folks? 3D printers, you can't stop the signal now. You're going to try to stop people from downloading the shape files, the visible files for those guns. BitTorrent, bitches. BitTorrent. It's not going to happen. I've got tons. I can give you tons of examples how this is just going to blow up in their face, and they're not going to be able to stop it. Joe, what do you think? What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, yeah, they don't do background checks on power saws, so they can't do them on CNC printers. They know. I mean, that's just it. Yeah. The whole concept is ridiculous. I think it's important to note that this investigation started in June of 2022. I don't know how it got started. I couldn't find that information, but it started back 2 years ago, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just arrested in the last 3 days. So you're looking at 2 years that they've looked at these guys.
Yeah.
And they get caught with, 18 weapons. Did they purchase more than that? Did they purchase them, 3 at a time? Because 9's a very odd number to have of anything.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you call whenever you deposit $9,999 into a bank one day, $9,999 the next day, just so the IRS don't catch you? Your step in payments like that. It seems like that's like just the way the list reads of what they got them on.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird that that's the number that every single gun had, or what they had on hand whenever they caught them. But the fact that they were looking into these guys for 2 years and wasting this much time and money to catch these guys with 3 weapons, 6 weapons, and 3 parts, or 9 weapons, 18 weapons. Fuck, I can't do math. 18 weapons and 9 part kits is ridiculous. And as of now, they are facing 35 counts. I couldn't find the exact counts, and there are only 2 indictments. And I guess, the way New York does their indictments, you can have multiple co-defendants facing the same charges within a single case. So the first indictment is for the 3 New Yorkers. The second is for the gentleman from South Carolina. He's got his own indictment.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 2 indictments. If anybody does care enough to look up that case, that it's going to be split up that way. Indictment 1 and indictment 2. Indictment 2 being the guy from South Carolina, and indictment 1 being the New York people. The local articles that I read, because I couldn't get anything from the courts yet because everything.
It's too new. Yeah,
it's too new. Everything's still being filed, but their arrest was 3 days ago. But I think it's also important because, Otter, you'll be able to touch on this more. None of these felony charges that they're facing were Class A felonies. All 35 charges were Class B, C, and D felonies.
Yeah. So, I mean, and typical New York fashion, they'll probably overcharge and try to, try to get them to plead down or something like that, just to get the conviction without risking, if they go for the full Monty, risking that, that bail. Because remember, bail reform is still a thing in New York State, and never think that the court won't turn around and bite you in the ass with that. If you look at New York City and there's a ton of different ones in some of the bigger, some of the smaller cities here in New York. So my guess is, they either wanted to overcharge and then plead them down a little bit so they get their pound of flesh to make examples of them. Hey, we're protecting our citizens from the scourge of ghost guns, unserialized pieces of metal. So that is my thinking that is going on here. But then again, I'm not a lawyer, so I couldn't exactly tell you. But still, the thing is, you've got Dexter Taylor. New York State is just they'll just take a pound of flesh from you. You've got Dexter, you've got these gentlemen here, which, I mean, granted, we don't have as much info as we do with Dexter at this point, but I mean, still, I don't see where this is gonna help them with anything in the long run. I mean,
so I've got two questions for you on that front.
Go.
One, if they were going to overcharge them, which, I mean, 35 counts is a lot.
Yeah.
So it would be easier to get a plea deal. Wouldn't there be at least one Class A felony attached to that instead of like B, C, and D felonies? I don't know what rights felons are allowed to regain up in New York.
It's not much.
Okay. I didn't know if like there was a differentiation between B, C, and D where you live, compared to here. But do you know where Elbridge, New York is?
Elbridge, not off the top of my head. But
okay, so that's where that's where Mr. Leon lives, and the other three gentlemen are in their mid to late 20s. And I believe the guy from South Carolina was 32, 33. He was still like they were all 26 to 32. But Mr. Elbridge is 52, and that's where he lives at. So it sounds like he was more of the brains behind the operation, and I wonder why they wouldn't give him a separate indictment since, those two guys came from Syracuse, that guy came from South Carolina, and they just all met in Elbridge where Mr. Leon lives.
Yeah, it looks like Elbridge is just west of Syracuse.
Okay, so it's close by. It wasn't like an hour or two drive.
Maybe not even that. I mean, it's
okay.
If you know where Weedsport is, where there's a speedway, if you're into NASCAR and that, where Weedsport is. It's near. It's just east of Weedsport.
Okay.
So if you're into that kind of thing, so
okay, I was just curious because when I was looking into it, I didn't look up the geography because I really don't know shit about New York, if we're going to be honest, as far as geographical locations go. That's why I was asking you about that. And if to you, it sounded like, maybe Mr. Leon might've been the quote unquote brains behind all of this, to connect the two younger gentlemen from Syracuse with the guy from South Carolina.
Possibly. I mean, I don't really know what, based on what we see here, I really don't know what else is going on, because they never seem to this. I mean, there doesn't seem to be as much, because like you said, this really happened just a short time ago, 3 days ago. So I don't know if we're going to get any more out of it until the court, the court proceedings happen. They don't even have anything in here in regards to bail or anything like that. So my guess is they probably got remanded, so they're sitting in the Oneida County lockup, not Oneida County. I can't remember what county Syracuse is in, but they're sitting in the county lockup probably. But I mean, at what point do we, I don't even know where to go with this. Honestly, I'm totally brain dead on this.
It really blows your mind that you get arrested for a piece of plastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Building guns, like building guns has been a part of American culture since before America's been a thing. We've always been allowed to make our own weapons, and I know we keep going back to Dexter's Mr. Dexter's case.
Yeah.
But it's really not much different unless, you know, this was going to known criminal gangs, which is a completely different topic altogether.
Right.
Um, but, you know, you're supposed to be able to do that. That's always been a thing in this country. So how do you arrest somebody for, you know, owning a piece of plastic, a couple chunks of metal, and some bullets? Like, especially the unassembled ones, which is what blows my mind. And frankly, I think all guns should be unserialized and unregistered. That's my opinion.
That's mine too. I agree.
So I don't see how you can make a felony out of something. It'd be one thing if every state had a similar law. It's like these marijuana laws. Okay.
Yeah.
I think this might be a good analogy. You've got some states where, you know, you get caught with more than half an ounce, it's a felony. You've got other states where you can have up to a couple pounds. You got some states where you can't even have a gram and you get severely punished for it.
Right.
Even if you just have the plant growing outside, which in the analogy, the plant is the piece of plastic that was printed or, you know, was the 80% lower. There's no uniformity. And even though the 50 states are their own little 50 countries, there has to be some uniformity or we wouldn't have the federation or the republic that we have. And it's just, it's unconstitutional, the laws that are on the books in New York, which, I mean, you've talked about that ad nauseum.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we have, you know, even tonight, and you keep, you know, the 2A community has always pounded that into the ground, right? Like, infringements are infringements are infringements. I can go to Home Depot, make a slam shotgun out of a couple pieces of plywood, a couple nails, and a piece of lead pipe at the end of the day. So how do you even start to prosecute somebody for making a safe, reliable weapon that is guaranteed under the Constitution?
Because you're a fascist piece of shit.
Well, I mean that too.
Yeah, you know, let's call it like it is. I mean, New York State,
man.
Yeah, I mean New York State has been run by Democrats for the past 70 some odd years, if not longer, with the occasional Republican here or there, which, you know, when you look at them, not really. I mean, even the current GOP in New York State is just, they're just castrated. That's the easiest word to use. Is the New York GOP is basically castrated. So something like this, where it has been not only legal, but literally a tradition in this country, literally a tradition to build your own firearm, New York State just, they don't care. It comes down to being a nanny state, and this, it's the same kind of thing you see with Democrats all over the place in regards to, they have to micromanage everything. They are the worst managers that you could possibly have in an office. I guarantee you could probably figure out which one's a Democrat based on their managerial style, because they freaking micromanage everything. But that's 100%. That's what they do. So, but getting back to it, I'm just dumbfounded by how New York State can really do all this. I mean, well, not really. They could pass whatever law they want. It's like we were saying before, it's better to fight this stuff in the legislature, which is easier said than done when it comes to New York, because Democrats have a super majority right now here in New York. They control the governor's, you know, office as well. So that's not going to be changing anytime soon. So we're kind of just shit out of luck right now. And things like this, which, I mean, honestly, I don't even see anything that charges them with, unless you've seen anything, Joe, that charges them with intent to distribute or sale or anything like that, other than, you know, they bought the parts to build the guns for themselves, for their own personal use.
So there was something mentioned, because I read something out of, I believe it was, let me get the name of the website right here. I believe it was. Well, if my phone works, I'll tell you here in just a second. It was FingerLakesDailyNews.com.
Okay.
They had mentioned some of the charges being brought up, and the only intent to sell, intent to deliver was levied on the guy from South Carolina.
Okay. So
But I think they were trying to, the way it was worded was there might be an intent to sell by somebody else because Leon had sold some of the guns to the two younger men from Syracuse. But it didn't mention that in like what indictment 1, indictment 2 entailed, but those indictments also didn't go into detail because those indictments obviously haven't been unsealed yet.
Yeah. So,
but it hinted at that, but it was more explicit with the guy from South Carolina.
Okay, because it looks like New York is probably going to try to go after the South Carolina guy more in this case, simply because he brought stuff up from South Carolina, which, like you said before, you got to be smart about this stuff. And this is, I mean, you want to be a rebel, be a smart rebel.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If the ATF or FBI doesn't pick him up on some type of interstate gun trafficking law, how does the New York state case proceed?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't illegal bringing those into the state. So he's not getting charged with any interstate trafficking laws, which I'm not a lawyer. I'm giving you the layman's lobbyist perspective. If there's no charge for interstate trafficking, how do you get charged with selling within that state without getting an interstate trafficking law since they came from another state? You can argue straw purchase if you want, which is fine. If any of them were felons, that's two other topics for a different day.
Yeah.
But I don't see how it could stand with a jury of their peers if there's no federal charge that is being applied to this.
And not to mention the fact that the whole unfinished frames and receivers is going to be that was one of the cases that got granted cert, I believe,
Yep.
at SCOTUS. So that's going to put a kibosh on things as well for the short term, because unless they decide, well, screw it, we're just going to move forward and then deal with it after the fact, which, I mean, we don't know how SCOTUS is going to rule on that, but I mean, you're right. It's one thing to, there's nothing federal in regards to moving that stuff through the state if it's not, finished. As far as I know, I can't remember, is the unfinished frames and receivers, is there an injunction on that? I thought there was.
Yes. The Vanderbilt case, there is an injunction, and the federal court appealed that, and I believe they granted an injunction on it.
Okay. So,
but I don't quote me on that, but I believe there is.
Okay. So, I mean, it looks like there's still a lot more that needs to come out for us to be able to kind of get a better grasp on it. But I wanted to bring this up simply because it's kind of mirroring what Dexter's going through right now. And he didn't even really,
he produced all his stuff at home.
Yeah.
He didn't, have it sent to another state and brought to him. Like, he printed all his stuff, to my knowledge, which, I mean, I guess he might have had some parts kits delivered. I don't know. But I don't know all the details. I know he got screwed.
But I mean, yeah, and there's no way that New York State can stop those files. They can't.
No.
I mean, it's impossible for them to be able to do that. They'll never be able to do that. So I think this is more of just New York State trying to flex its muscles to just kind of show that they're trying to do something, because their press is not that great, especially with the bail reform. New York City being a big a big glaring fact of that. New New York National Guard in the subway, and then all these people and these illegals, criminal migrants that are getting arrested and then let go. I think they're just basically looking for some good PR. They're hoping this one, if they throw it at the wall, will stick, but I don't think it's going to stick.
Mentioned in the subway, you had Daniel Penny that accidentally choked that guy out, which he was still alive after he let go of the chokehold.
Yes.
And they still charged him with that shit.
Yeah.
I never had the desire to live in New York City.
Don't blame me.
Anywhere north of where I live at now.
Yeah.
But when you see stories like this, like people want to say, oh, well, New York City is the best city in the world. Well, why did you lose so many people during the pandemic?
Yeah. 250,000 people.
People moving out in mass. And it's honestly because of, cases like Daniel Penny, Dexter Taylor, these 4 guys, which we don't know enough about, but I'm going to throw that out there. And I'm sure there are a million others that we missed. Like the lady that shot the guy that was climbing through her daughter's window. I don't know if that was New York or not.
That was Texas, I believe. And I believe the grand jury decided not to indict her.
Yeah, and said that the apartment building had no right to say she couldn't own a firearm.
Right.
But you hear stories like that, and you see men get prosecuted for doing the right thing. That, growing up as a man, you're taught, hey, do the right thing. They do the right thing, and they get thrown in jail. While you've got kids rioting on these campuses and facing maybe a misdemeanor, weekend in jail.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. I get you. And I think we're going to end up having to maybe revisit this one again, just because we don't get a lot here. And I'm not blaming Tom on that. I'm guessing he's just going by what he's got. But the fact of the matter is, and the point that Tom was making in here is that, you can pass all the laws you want. It doesn't mean the criminals are going to obey it, or much less that they're good laws, even from that kind of a standpoint. So you're just basically going to put innocent men and women in jail and cause all kinds of crap.
Yep.
And that's what it's going to come down to. So, but I think we should keep this one on our radar and come back to it at another time when we got a little bit more info. Because it's only a few days old, and so there's probably going to be more to it in that. So, but everybody that's watching, whether you're here on Rumble or you're on YouTube or on X, let us know down in the comments what you think about each story. We talked about the New Mexico, the Minnesota House member that was basically schooling his peers about the storage law that they were trying to pass. What do you think about Trump's 2A record? Is he pro 2A? Is he kind of middle of the road? Is he not 2A? What's your thoughts on that? NRA reform. What about that? Let us know in the comments below. And then, of course, these 4 men here charged with trafficking, quote unquote, ghost guns. What's your thoughts on that? You can let us know there as well. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, follow the channel and this video. Let other people know about the show. More people, the merrier. And of course, check out the show notes. That's where we've got the link to the Discord. You can join the 2A community there and talk about that stuff all the time. We also talk about, we're talking about gaming, and we've also got some memes that we throw out there. Some good memes in case you need to burn somebody on X. So definitely go and check that out. Joe, thanks for co-hosting again tonight. I appreciate it. We definitely are going to have you back.
Always a pleasure, sir. I appreciate you having me on here a second time. And I know I'm 0 for 2 on the camera fucking working right. Maybe third time will be the charm, brother.
Third time will be the charm, baby. We'll try to make sure that happens. May just have to take a day and just do that and go from there and see what we get and just kind of take it as it goes. In the meantime, rock and roll. Next show is going to be Monday. So make sure you join us for that. Monday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Like, share, follow. Check out the show notes. Join the Discord. And check out the merch store. Help support the channel. Appreciate everything that you guys help me do with this channel. I really do. And thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. In the meantime, keep your head on a swivel and act accordingly. Catch you later.